right. So I just wanted to talk about that absolutely insane week 18 for the NFL season. Now, this video probably won't be edited. I'm probably just going to talk off the cuff. I don't really have any notes. I just kind of want to talk about this week 18 because there was a lot of teams and a lot of games that didn't mean anything. And, we kind of thought everything was set in stone. Nothing crazy would happen. That couldn't have been further from the truth with week 18. This week had to have been one of, if not the greatest final weekends in NFL history. Like this weekend was absolutely insane from start to finish. Like it was great. I wish I had other ways to put it. This Sunday slate of games was fantastic from start to finish. It was amazing. Like you start with the early games. You had the Tennessee-Houston game, which was looking like it was going to be a complete blowout by Tennessee. The Chiefs fans were up and down. Like if you look at the Sunday night football game, which we'll get to because gosh, that was probably the greatest football game I've ever seen. But you just start early on with the Texans and Titans game. Us Chiefs fans were rooting so hard for the Texans. They were down like 21 points at one point in the game. They crawl their way back. They get within 3. They had a chance to win. They couldn't pull it off. Like our game didn't feel as intense and as crazy as like a Steelers fan, a Chargers fan, a Raiders fan. But at the same time, that game for us was kind of intense because once the Texans got down 21 points, they're like, all right, this game's over. The Chiefs don't have a chance at the number 1 seed. They obviously didn't end up getting it. But we're just sitting here just like, all right, the Texans are making this a game. They're calling back in. Everybody had turned off the game, and everybody's like, oh, wait, there's still a chance. They're still fighting. The Texans have a chance. Obviously, they didn't pull it off, but just from that game alone, it was just absolutely insane. And then you have the Jacksonville-Indianapolis game. Man, that we kind of have Indianapolis losing to thank for this entire setup to that Sunday night football game. If it wasn't for Indianapolis, none of the craziness that happened on Sunday Night Football would have happened at all. None whatsoever. But thankfully, the Indianapolis Colts, they have Carson Wentz, who absolutely stunk it up really bad in the season finale for the Colts. He was absolutely pathetically bad. He was god-awful. The Colts went from a team that everybody was like, oh, they're going to be a scary team to play in the playoffs, to not even being in the playoffs now, which is absolutely hilarious. It's that's great. The Colts went from a team that was getting hot at the right time, beating teams that we thought, were going to be legit in the playoffs, to them themselves losing to one of the worst teams in football and allowing Trevor Lawrence to just have an absolute amazing game, looking elite. Like Trevor Lawrence, he was terrible weeks 1 through 17, and week 18, I think Trevor Lawrence made his biggest stride as a starter in the NFL. Like that was Trevor Lawrence's best game, and Trevor Lawrence having his best game, beating the Colts, turned out to allow the fans of football have the craziest weekend alive. Like the Colts losing, crapping the bed all over the place against the Jacksonville Jaguars is just, it's absolutely insane to me how that happened. Carson Wentz absolutely stinks. He was so bad in that game. Like, it wasn't even close. Like, Carson Wentz, at this point, I think it's safe to say that the Colts are a quarterback away from being a legit team. They have the defense. They have the offensive line. They have the receivers. They have obviously the best running back in the NFL, and Jonathan Taylor this season. And they crapped the bed. Carson Wentz was absolutely terrible in this game. He threw back-to-back interceptions. Carson Wentz sucked in that game. And basically, Carson Wentz alone, not only did Carson Wentz end the season for the Colts, if you look at his former team, the Eagles, he's sitting there helping out the Eagles because they get rid of his dead weight. They have they don't have to deal with him anymore, and they're in the playoffs. Like, obviously, this outcome had nothing to do with help with the Eagles, but you look at the situations. The Eagles are in the playoffs, and the Colts are not. So who won that divorce? I know it's not a Tom Brady, Bill Belichick, Patriots divorce, but if you look at this, the Eagles are in the playoffs and the Colts are not. This was supposed to be the Colts' year. The Eagles were supposed to be in a massive rebuild. That's not what happened. Like, both the Colts and the Eagles started off their seasons terribly, But the Colts just decided to be terrible at the worst possible time this season, and it blew up in their face. It blew up in their face hardcore against Jacksonville. Who, credit to Jacksonville, they had nothing to play for, and they came out and they had one hell of a game. That was impressive. Watching the Tennessee and Houston game, and then having red zone on and them constantly going back and forth between the Colts and Jacksonville game, it was absolute insanity. It was awesome. I'm thankful that the Colts lost because it led to the greatest Sunday Night Football game probably ever. That was, if we're going from X's and O's standpoint, I don't care to care. I don't even look at games from X's and O's standpoint. I can look at a game and be like, oh, this guy stunk, or this guy was bad. Oh, that was good. This guy played well. I don't care to look at football games through the X's and O's. I mean, situational, I'll look at it, but you look at the X's and O's, screw that. You look at that, you're focusing way too hard on the game and you're not having fun doing it. Leave those people to ESPN and Fox and everybody else who breaks down the games. I just want to sit there and enjoy myself. And that's what I sat down for 10 hours straight, 11 hours straight, however long it was, and just enjoyed myself. Because that, like I was mentioning, that first window of games was absolutely great. Watching the Tennessee-Houston game, watching Indianapolis-Jacksonville. But then you get to the late slate, you had the San Francisco-LA game, which that game alone could have been considered game of the year caliber just but on its own. Like, that game was absolutely insane. If we're looking at those two teams alone, I don't know if either San Francisco or LA is going to be a legitimate threat when it comes to the playoffs. Like, if I'm being honest, I don't know. Because San Francisco, when their running game is on, they're great. But when they have to rely on Jimmy Garoppolo, the 49ers, when they rely on him, they're in a bad spot. The 49ers are in a bad spot. Like, today, they were in a terrible spot trying to rely on Jimmy Garoppolo. Now, he came up clutch. I see this a lot, and I really do agree with it. Jimmy Garoppolo in a 2-minute drill is one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. Like, by far. One of the best. The way that he slings the ball well. Like, I don't think Jimmy Garoppolo is terrible. I really don't. I think he's definitely a top 32 quarterback in the NFL. He'll find a job next year. And I think, maybe a hot take looking too far ahead. If he guides the 49ers and he's the sole reason that they win a Super Bowl, he might be back in San Francisco. Now, that's as far-fetched, and, the likelihood of that happening is very slim to none. But if you look at this game alone, the 49ers, they got down to a 17-0 hole. The Rams offense looked absolutely amazing. We were like, all right, this is the Rams offense we thought they were going to be the entire year. Matthew Stafford is finally getting rid of all those stupid mistakes that he's making. He's making all the big throws, and then the second half happened, and that's not even close to what happened. Matthew Stafford went back to his terrible self. The Rams offense just completely stalled out and was bad for chunks of that game. They got it to overtime, and San Francisco able to get down, kick a field goal, and then their defense came up clutch, and they were able to intercept Matthew Stafford for a second time. So I don't know. I'm having a hard time judging the Rams because I feel like they're having issues putting 2 games consecutively together. They're having troubles putting consecutive drives together at times, let alone consecutive halves, consecutive games, a stretch of 3 or 4 games. So I have a lot of questions about the Rams. The 49ers, they have a lot of question marks. They have a very solid defense, and they have a great scheming, and they have Deebo Samuel. I can't move on and not talk about Deebo. Deebo was absolutely amazing in this game. I think he had a receiving, rushing, and passing touchdown in this game. He was absolutely electric. He's a star. Like, if people didn't think Deebo was a star before this season, which, I thought he was a pretty good going all the way back to that Super Bowl when they played the Chiefs. But if you can't look at Deebo Samuel now and think he's a star, I don't think, I'm not an expert on NFL talent. I watch college football. I don't think, oh, this guy's coming into the NFL going to be a complete star. I watch the games. If you don't think Deebo's a complete star, I don't think you appreciate his talent and how good he is. Like, Deebo was fan-freaking-tastic in that game. And again, Jimmy Garoppolo, we give him crap, but he may struggle at times in this game. Like, he threw some ill-timed interceptions. But if Jimmy Garoppolo, who struggles for most of the game, but can still pull out consistently great 2-minute drives, I think that's something to show for the 49ers and Jimmy Garoppolo. So, at least Kyle Shanahan, who seems to have trust issues with his quarterbacks at times, if they're throwing interceptions and not playing great, he seems to take the ball out of their hand. I think in the playoffs, I think if Jimmy Garoppolo can lead them down the field on a great touchdown drive, I think the 49ers themselves will be just fine. But if you look at the 49ers, once their run game got going, they were great. So both of these teams, 49ers and Rams, I think are the two of the hardest teams to judge when it comes to the playoffs this season. I really do. I have no idea what to make. I think it's safe to say that as great as this season is, how great these teams are, and I don't mean this in a negative way, I think because the season was so long, I think we saw how flawed every single team in the NFL was this year. I really do. I'm looking right now at the standings and the teams that made this playoffs. You look at 1 through 7 in the AFC, you look at 1 through 7 in the NFC. You look at all 14 teams, you have the flaws. You have the Tennessee Titans. Can they trust Ryan Tannehill? Injuries. The Packers, their defense at times hasn't been particularly good. Tampa Bay, they have injuries. The Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes, their defense, sometimes it can be inconsistent. They pull out drives, but still there's question marks there. The Bills, if Josh Allen's not having a good game, the Bills don't have a good game. The Cowboys, they're inconsistent. The Bengals, again, I feel like their defense and inconsistency at times. The Rams, Matthew Stafford playing poorly down the stretch. The Cardinals, who I think have turned into complete frauds. The Raiders, credit to Rich Bisaccia. We'll get to their game. Like, all these teams, Patriots, Steelers, Eagles, 49ers, every one of these teams have flaws that I think are easily pointed out, like very, very easily pointed out. Because then you get to the Seahawks and Cardinals game, and the Seahawks defeated the Cardinals when the Cardinals were trying to win their division. They couldn't do it. This is where I'm starting to think that the Cardinals might be a fraudulent team, because Kyler Murray, they haven't been particularly good down the stretch this season. They have not. They had that win against the Cowboys. But at the same time, I don't know if that loss for the Cowboys shows more. I think that the Cardinals beating the Cowboys kind of shows more of the Cowboys, because the Cowboys couldn't beat a Cardinals team who was also losing to other, inconsistent and bad teams. So as I'm saying, some of these teams, they've had some bad losses and it's hard to judge them. Same with the Cardinals. So this season was crazy. But then you get to Sunday Night Football. I think Sunday Night Football between the Chargers and the Raiders was absolutely insane. This is what I'm talking about, trying to go down X's and O's and being like, no. Like, obviously, the Raiders made mistakes. The Chargers had way too many penalties. I feel like the Chargers were charging. They made some special team mistakes. The Raiders, they couldn't close out this game at whatsoever. You had the, special teams with the muff punt for the Chargers. You had the missed field goal. But the Chargers, they couldn't, in this game whenever they needed to. You had the Chargers making some terrible fourth down decisions in the fourth quarter, going for it at their own, 18-yard line. And then you had, that led to a field goal. And then, you just had more and more things. But, at this time, it was insane. And then you get down to the last drive of this game. The last drive of this game was absolutely insane. I shouldn't even say last drive of this game. I should say the last drive of overtime, or the regulation. The last drive of regulation was absolutely insane. The Chargers had 21 plays. They were completely gassed. Their offensive line couldn't protect anything. Their receivers were dropping everything left and right. Everybody on that Chargers team was absolutely gassed. They were done. But they fought until the end. Both of these teams in overtime, we thought because of the Colts, we thought the magical situation was going to happen where we were going to get that tie. Obviously, some people called me insane for rooting for a tie, and I'm just like, why not? Why not? This great NFL season of a whole bunch of unknowns coming down to the final. This came down to the final play. The clock ran out in overtime of the final game of the regular season. It did. What else could you ask for? And some people said the NFL is scripted. I'm like, are you kidding me? How could you say this is scripted? You bring the Chargers Raiders game, you bring that to Hollywood, and they will show you the door immediately. They'll be like, this is BS. No one's gonna buy this. If you watch this game and you watch this as a Hollywood movie, there is zero chance in anyone's right mind that they would buy this game. None whatsoever. And if you say you would buy this game, I think you're lying. You can't buy this game. That's why I think the NFL and everybody's saying it's scripted. I'm like, how can you say this is scripted? I mean, you could say it's ironic. You can say it's 100 other things. Scripted, I don't think is the word, because you can't script this. You literally cannot script the insanity that happened. And then how, if it's scripted, why would Brandon Staley, when I think it was 4th down or 3rd down, when the Raiders had the ball in the final drive of overtime, when it looked like the Raiders were set in stone, which is taking the tie, both of them getting into the playoffs, Brandon Staley calls a timeout. Like that timeout, that one timeout at the end of overtime cost the Raiders they're the Chargers their season. That the one timeout cost the Chargers their season. It really did. I mean, you can look at every single thing that happened way before that. You can. I get that. Some people look at things X's and O's wise. I don't. I like to watch the football game and see what I thought was good and bad. I mean, I thought there was some terrible refereeing in this game. I thought there was terrible quarterback play. I thought there was literally terrible on all sides. Like, I think this game showed the flaws of both of these teams, of everyone on their teams. But I also thought it, showed the teams that could shine. Like, I thought Derek Carr at times played well. I thought at times that Justin Herbert played well, especially that final drive of the regulation when he was just converting 4th down after 4th down after 4th down after 4th down. Like, it was a game where you, as a Raiders fan, you're sitting there getting all hyped up. You stopped him on 1st down, 2nd down, 3rd down. He gets to 4th down. Let's go. And then every time the Chargers were converting on 4th down. Like, that was the story of the Chargers season, I think, is 4th down and aggressiveness. I really do. And it came down to these teams coaching, like Rich Bisaccia. Like, I don't think he's going to win Coach of the Year, but I think he should get consideration for maybe getting the Raiders job. Like, I'm serious. Like, he coached them into the playoffs with a terrible situation, a team that the Henry Ruggs issue, the John Gruden issue, they had a defensive player, I can't think of it off the top of my head, who had that issue of social media things. Like, there's nothing you can complain about. Like, I know refs were bad. Oh, the NFL scripted. I'm like, if you think this is scripted, you just can't simply appreciate how great this season was. Like, if you could put 2 team season into one game, if you could put a final weekend into a game, if you can put an entire season and just throw it into one final game where both of these teams are giving it their all. But the Chargers, I think at one point I saw they had ran 83 plays, and by the end of it, the Chargers probably ran almost 100 plays in this game. These teams left it all on the field, played their guts out, played their hearts out, left it all on the field for till the final whistle of this game. And the Raiders, they just happened to be the team at the right place at the right time. Like, I have nothing to complain about what happened in this game. I really don't. I thought it was absolutely wonderful. I thought at points in this game, I thought it was way over, especially that interception that happened in the 4th quarter. But the Chargers didn't give up. They kept fighting, crawled their way back in it, got it to overtime, and we were all rooting for a tie. Some people thought I was insane for it. The entertainment value alone of this game was enough. Like, we have teams that we root for. Obviously, I think the Chiefs would come out with a bad situation if one of these 2 teams had won, or if there's one of these 2 teams had tied, I should say. But it just, at the end of the day, it's football. It's entertainment. It's great. Like, it's hard to complain about this game. For me, it's really hard to complain about this game. And it's hard for me to complain about this weekend. From the Chiefs getting their victory on Saturday all the way up to the final, literally the final play of the regular season. The final play. I have nothing to complain about. I really don't. Great season, great football. I think, honestly, the better team won this game. I think the Chargers shot themselves in the foot a million times. And I think overall, this season as a whole was great. And guess what? We still have the playoffs to go. So that is just me discussing week 18 a little bit. It's an informal video. I kind of just wanted to throw my thoughts out. I have no notes for this game. I'm kind of just looking at the NFL.com website right here in front of me and just talking about the games from what I saw. And so, yeah, give me your thoughts down below of what you thought of week 18. And I will have more videos out later this week. The power rankings, predictions, maybe a video about the Chiefs and who can stop them, a Chiefs preview video, all those things. I'll try to have as much content out this week as I can leading up into Super Wildcard weekend. We get another week full of football. So, yeah, give me your thoughts down below of what you thought of week 18, and I'll see you in the next one.